Hey guys. You're probably never gonna watch this video, but if you ever do, it means I did something pretty great, because it's the only reason you would have to watch this video. To log on, look up my name, and go through my videos and watch the one that I made on the 38th day of my journey, where I'm still discovering my voice and all I'm doing is 100 crunches and a couple shoulder taps and a couple jumps. And that's just the truth. And that's okay. So, if you're watching this and you know my name, or you decided to go through my videos, all I have to say tonight is that keeping this challenge and this commitment to myself has been such a great tool to grow my focus and my discipline, and I encourage you to do it too. And you know what? Maybe I'll speak to the me of tomorrow and the me in 10 years. Hey, man. Nothing seems certain right now. Actually, everything is quite uncertain. But you've been really enjoying trying new things and showing up for yourself. So good job. In 10 years from now, you're probably going to look at me and think, how could I have not been more loving and kind towards myself at that time? What would I give to be 33 again? But, yeah, I'm 33 and I don't always feel sexy and smart and like I can conquer the world. And so you might be looking back and going, if I could be 33 again, instead of being 43 right now, I would feel sexy and I would conquer the world. So I'm going to try to think of that tomorrow and try to step into that energy, because I'm not in that energy right now, but that's okay. I promise you this, I will keep showing up for myself every day. I will become obsessed with the things that we want to do. And I'm glad we made it. I trust that we're gonna make it. Gonna try something new today.
Not just in theory, but in practice. Now imagine for a moment that the struggles that you're facing right now, the patterns that you can't seem to break, and the potential that you feel is just out of reach, all come down to one thing: learning how to unleash your shadow self. See, Carl Jung discovered that human beings have 4 main archetypes that govern their lives. First, there's the persona, which is the mask you show the world, the version of you that fits in, plays by the rules. And then there's the anima or animus, the feminine and masculine energies within you, driving your creativity, your emotions, and how you connect with others on a soul deep level. What if I told you that behind that mask is something far more powerful, something you've been avoiding your whole life? The shadow, the part of you that holds all your hidden fears, desires, and untapped potential. This isn't just the dark side that you've been told to ignore. It's the key to everything that you've ever been searching for. Now, we also have a hero within us, striving to conquer life's challenges, to rise above and go beyond. But here's what no one ever tells you. True power doesn't come from just the hero alone. It comes from understanding and embracing every single part of yourself, especially the shadow. This is where your true potential lies, waiting to be unleashed. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to tap into your shadow side, not just to understand it, but to actually integrate it into your life in a way that will change everything for you. This isn't just another shiny personal development tactic or a clickbaity personal development video. This is the missing piece that, once correctly implemented, will unlock a whole new level of success that was once out of reach for you. Let's get started. So in order to understand shadow work and how it actually works, we have to understand the different aspects of mind that we all have. At the most surface level, we have the conscious mind, your conscious faculties daily. 5% of it is our whole being. Next, we have the subconscious mind, slightly below the conscious mind. That's another 5%. You're aware of it, but you're not aware of it. The remaining is the personal unconscious. The remaining 90% is the personal and the collective unconscious, which has largely been shaped by society, people around us. We have collectively contributed to it. The unconscious mind, the personal unconscious, is very important to understand because it typically reflects any deficits we have with our conscious. So for example, if you're someone who feels inferior, what you'll start to notice is you'll have dreams of superiority, where you start to have congregations with very, very high people in their fields. Like you might have dinner with Einstein and a meeting with Napoleon Bonaparte, or other celebrities that you can think of. And that happens because your unconscious is trying to tell. It's just basically trying to balance you out. Okay, so what most people do is they're very, very unaware of what's happening with the unconscious, and so they can't truly follow their intuition. And this is where the shadow side comes in, because we keep suppressing that shadow side within our unconscious until one day it just explodes and we just lose all control of ourselves. And that's something I would like to not happen for you. And part of Carl Jung's work is about the goal. The goal is individuation, which is reaching absolute harmony with each and every single part of ourselves, with the hero, the animus anima, the shadow, the conscious, the ego, okay? So the shadow plays a very, very important role in this. And for most people, they have a gross misunderstanding of the shadow or what the shadow is, because we've been told to embody a certain part of ourselves. So the very first thing we have to understand is the concept of identity shifting, which I've taught my over 1,000 clients how to do, how to shift into the version of yourself you were truly meant to be, okay? So when most people think about something like identity shifting, they think they must be someone else. They must become someone else to experience what they want. And where this concept of identity shifting comes in is the being, which leads to doing, which finally leads to having. When we be who we were meant to be, we do what we were meant to do, and we have what we were meant to have. So for a lot of people, they struggle to achieve their goals because the goals that they're trying to achieve weren't meant for them. I want you to really think about this. The reason why you feel like it's such a battle to achieve your goals, and this took me a very long time to understand, by the way. I was always battling against an invisible force. And why this happened was because I was trying to achieve someone else's goal. So for most people, they're taught to go to school, get a great degree, find a safe job, stay at the job for the next 40 years of your life, and then you will retire and get to live your life. That's the narrative I was told, and that was what was stored in my collective unconscious because of societal expectations. For 99% of people, that is not the right path. For 99% of people, going that traditional 9-to-5 route is not the right path. For 1%, sure. For a certain individual, that is the perfect path. That is their dream. That is amazing, wonderful. But for most people, it's not. But most people are afraid to own who they were really meant to be. And there's a great quote from a book I read called Relentless by Tim Grover. And Tim Grover says, in order to have what you really want, you must first be who you really are. For me, once I realized this, I had the life that was beyond my wildest dreams. So to recap my story, back in 2019, I was supposed to go that traditional 9-to-5 route and be miserable. But I took a leap and started this business where I started making YouTube videos, sharing what I wanted to share, and people started to reach out to me for coaching. And I was very, very afraid to do that because who was I, some 20-year-old kid making these videos online? And I didn't even want to make videos. You know, I was like very timid and shy, and you know, I was like, what gives me the right to make these videos? So it was very, very uncomfortable for me to do this, right? Because I wasn't initially qualified to, or I didn't feel qualified to do this. What I did know was the engineering degree that I got in college and to pursue an engineering job. That's what I felt qualified to do. But this felt like the right thing for me to do because this was who I really was, sharing my message, you know, having a public persona and speaking. That's who I really was, but I just didn't feel comfortable owning it because this isn't who I was accustomed to being. I was accustomed to being someone society told me to be. Be safe, protect yourself, don't take risks, conserve the little money that you have in your bank account, just hold on to it. You know, just be afraid, be deathly afraid, anything can happen. Oh, you're going through, you know, society's going through this, economically times are bad, protect, don't take risks. And so I had to change, I had to identity shift to being and becoming who I was meant to be. Do you understand the difference? Most of you, when you study personal development, what you think is, oh, I am a lazy piece of shit and I need to be someone different. Oh, I'm not confident and something about me is damaged. I am damaged. I need to be someone different. No, you don't. You actually, the only different person you need to be is who you were meant to be. Okay? That's the only difference. You've got to become who you're meant to be to have what you truly, truly want. So when I gave myself permission to own who I was being and own my deficiencies, shortcomings, and be vulnerable and authentic to them, guess what happened? Within 4 years of starting that business, not only did I make over $1 million every single year, I also found the partner of my dreams, got married to her, have a baby now, and now we're living in beautiful sunny South Florida. We have 2 houses. Like my life right now, I couldn't have imagined this. I thought I'd be in a job at this age and, you know, trying to save up for my first house or something, trying to secure a mortgage or something, but now I have more money than I know what to do. And I'm not saying this to brag, I'm just saying this is truly what's possible when you allow yourself to become who you're meant to be. Like the goal that I set for myself when I started on this journey was just barely making 20K a month. And I've way surpassed that. And anything that ever imagined was capable, I was capable of. Why is this possible? It's only possible when you truly own who you're meant to be. I know I'm saying this a lot of times, but I cannot say this enough. I can't say this enough. Because most people will hear this, it will go in through one ear and out the other. Right? They'll never truly internalize this. They'll never truly give themselves permission to be who they're meant to be. You have to give yourself permission to be who you're meant to be. So, at first, when you're being who you're meant to be, this is where people actually get lost, because at first it feels fake. At first it will feel fake. It will feel unnatural for you to be who you're meant to be, but it will feel like the right thing to do. It will feel uncomfortable, but it will feel like the right thing to do. That's how you know you're on the right path. The other way that you know that you're on the right path is if you feel less drained at the end of the day. Because for most people, they get this thing called persona fatigue, okay? They get persona fatigue. Why does this happen? Well, this happens simply due to the mere fact that you are trying to be someone you're not. You're trying to embody someone you are meant to be. Your shadow side is suppressed. It's not finding expression. And by the third part of this video, I'm going to share with you how to unleash the shadow side, which is going to completely change everything for you. How you experience life is going to be completely different. You're going to experience a level of freedom you've never experienced. But for now, just understand that when you embody who you're truly meant to be, it expends the least amount of energy. When you become who you are meant to be, it's actually the most effortless to be in that state of being. If you feel like you are drained around your dad, your mom, or your friends, whatever it is, it's because you're trying to be someone you're not. You're trying to put on a facade. You're trying to put on a face. You're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And that's exactly why you're not experiencing what you want. It's as simple as that. So the key I want you to take away from this is the very first step to unleashing your shadow self, to shifting into the version of you were meant to be, is to stop suppression. What do I mean by that? When you have opinions and things that you think and feel and believe, allow yourself to express them. If what you think is true will hurt people's feelings, don't be afraid to live your truth. Don't be afraid to express your truth just because, and I'm not saying like you just publicly go out and do it, but for example, if you've been someone who's a people pleaser your whole life and you've been a yes man, but you know that saying what you truly feel is authentic, it's real to you, you gotta say it. Because guess what? The other person might not like it, but they will respect you. They will respect you a lot more than if you had just lied again and just tried to people please. And you just became a yes man again. So sometimes when you feel like, hey, this option actually isn't right for me, go ahead and say it. Go ahead and express your opinion. And don't judge yourself for it. Because the more you keep things suppressed, guess what happens? It gets repressed. And it goes into your unconscious. Then it starts to act out in ways in which you wouldn't like. In psychosomatic ailments, through this psychological pressure that develops. And it's just going to create unintended consequences in your life. Okay? And that's something we don't want. So the very first step is to stop suppression and to stop judgment. Any form of self-judgment. Allow yourself to be who you really are. If you have a negative thought, a lot of people when they get started in this personal development journey, they're afraid of their own thoughts. How absurd is that? You're afraid of this negative thought that came up. You don't have to feed it. It's just a thought. You can simply observe it and let it be. You let that thought exist as it is without trying to change it. Don't try to focus on positives and try to get rid of it. Allow yourself to have negative thoughts. Allow yourself to have negative feelings. You are allowed to think, feel, and be this way temporarily. It's not, you don't have to bother with it because that's not who you chose to be, okay? And that's the crucial part of you becoming who you're meant to be, is accepting without trying to change anything. Just be as you are and drop that armor, which very, very nicely leads to the second part of this process of unleashing your true self, learning to become vulnerable and learning to become authentic. Let's get to that right now. Vulnerability. This is one of the most important words that completely changed my life this year. And the reason why that is because I realized that even though I was saying that I'm being authentic and I'm being vulnerable, I actually wasn't. And what happened was, back when I was around 13 years old, I lived in the UK and I got bullied as a kid. And I got bullied because I was freely expressing my opinion. And I was kind of just, if people were being idiots, I was just straight up calling them idiots without a lack of social awareness. And so, they started bullying me. And so then over time, I morphed into this version that was kind of a people pleaser who just fit in. I just became who people wanted me to be, okay? I became the charming kind of version that I had to be to have women like me and men want to be like me. That's what I strived to be my whole life so that I could fit in and be part of the masses. That's literally it. I just wanted to shine. And so because of that, what I realized was I always had a tough time developing deep friendships, but I always had a desire to form deep friendships. But the reason I couldn't was because I always kept everyone at arm's length. And here's why. Here's the fucked up reason why. It's because I had a tough time letting people into my circle because I was afraid they would find out who I truly am and then see that I'm a fraud, right? And if they found out that I was a fraud, then people would reject me and I would go back to that old way that I was when I got bullied. And that actually had trickle-down effects into my relationship. I had a tough time letting my wife in and being vulnerable with her because I had to give off this image of being a strong masculine man so that I could be the leader of this in this relationship, instead of allowing myself to be vulnerable in moments of weakness. And by the way, one of the greatest sources of shame, I learned this from Brene Brown from a book called The Power of Vulnerability. If you read it, I highly recommend that you do. For men, the greatest source of shame is weakness. For women, the greatest source of shame is their appearance, right? Like not looking good. For women, they have to be superwoman, you know, get everything done and look smoking hot while doing it, right? Which is unrealistic. And for men, the one thing they can't do is be a weak man. Don't be a weak man. You gotta man up, you know, and sack up, right? There's always that saying. But because I had that ingrained within me in my unconscious, I had to be a strong man. Otherwise, I would let my family down, you know, let my wife down, let my kid down, and everyone down. And then when I realized the power of vulnerability and the negative consequences it had of me keeping my wife at arm's length, we would constantly have fights, especially after having a kid. This came to like, we would constantly have fights. There was always a communication issue. And by the way, in relationships, as you know, man, woman, like if a man is feeling a certain way, the woman can tell because she's more intuitive. But going even deeper into that, if a woman can't sense what the man is feeling because they're not being authentic, they're not being vulnerable, they don't feel safe in the relationship. Okay, they feel uncertain and they feel stressed out. So when you become vulnerable, you actually create a safe space for both people in the relationship. Okay, so when I started doing that, our relationship actually became a lot more fulfilling, and I started to notice that I stopped being stressed. My wife became a great source of power to me. Okay, and so the quality of my life drastically changed. Not just to mention like every single other area of my life. My business started doing better. You know, I actually became a millionaire after I met my wife. Fun fact: I was broke before my wife and I met, and you know, she wasn't even my girl. Like I just didn't have a girlfriend, and she became my girlfriend. I started my business in 2019 when we were together, and then with her I saw this business, you know, go to over $1 million a year. And so this kind of like gave me epiphanies, like, hey, she balances me somehow, but I never really utilized this until my coach told me, like, hey, your wife is actually a great source of power, but you're not utilizing it. You have this like great immense source of power that you're just not utilizing because you're afraid. You're afraid to let your guard down on your armor because you believe that you have to be this strong man. And it's actually being a hamper. It's blocking you from getting to that next level in your evolution. So for me, learning about vulnerability was a great lesson. But what we don't understand is how to become vulnerable because we mistake two main things, shame and guilt. So what happens is when we do something bad, for most people who are in shame, they say, oh fuck, I fucked up again, I'm a bad person. So Brene Brown in her book, The Power of Vulnerability, gives this example of a woman gets drunk Thursday night, Friday morning she has a big meeting, she goes in hungover, she's like, client meeting this. In the first situation she says, I'm such a fucker, I'm a piece of shit. That's shame. In the second situation, she says, I missed this client meeting. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I could do something so stupid. It's tied to a behavior. I did something stupid, not I am stupid. I did something stupid is guilt. I am stupid is shame. Shame is something that brings us to the lowest of all pits. If you look at this level of consciousness, you'll see that shame is much lower than guilt, I believe. You know, I might be incorrect, but from what I understand, shame is way lower than guilt. And in shame, we actually lead to a lot of negative repercussions. Like shame is apparently directly correlated to addiction. When people are in shame, it leads to a lot more cases of addiction, whereas in guilt, you have power to transmute up to the higher levels. In shame, you're stuck. When you feel shame and you're self-inflicting blame, you're identifying as the kind of person who does this, guess what? In this being, doing, having, if we go back to this, you're basically saying, I am stupid. So if you identified as someone who's stupid, you're going to do stupid things and you're going to have stupid outcomes. But then if you just stop it right here and you say, you know what? I'm not stupid. I made a mistake. I did something stupid. So your identity, you cut it off right here, right? You don't identify with it any longer. So in order for us to become more and more vulnerable, we have to learn to disidentify from the labels that we've created. Because once you identify with the label that you've created, you immediately take on those characteristics. You immediately become that kind of person. Okay? So the goal isn't to just disidentify, it's to create conscious identification. If you consciously identify with someone who is, I am stupid, well, no one consciously chooses to identify with them, right? It happens unconsciously. You keep telling yourself the story. Whereas most of the time, we unconsciously identify with this. So if I want to create the version that I want to become, I have to know what I'm choosing to identify with and choosing to disidentify with. Okay? So when I choose to identify with who I was meant to be, the quasi, the authentic.
Sounds good. Sounds like good work to do. Thanks, guys.